Right, let's kick off. I see people have joined in. We've got all 50 people we were hoping to have online. First of all, thank you very much for coming on this webinar. I know it's very, very trialing times. Everyone's very nervous and worried, and we have the right to be worried. So thank you for coming to spend the time. I know you could have done a lot of other wonderful, exciting things at home. So I've just put in there, here's Belinda's wisdom of where we're at and why. I said that together we stand, I mean, stay at home. And for me, as I've reflected this week, has been quite an insightful week for myself. I've summarized there where I think we're at. I think paradigms have shifted. I don't think business will ever be the same. The way we travel, the way we talk to people, interact has changed forever. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just thinking about this week, I've had a whole lot of conversations with customers I've tried to see for a long, long time that were just too busy that had time to talk to me. I also had a lot of prospects that were very, very busy, but we hopped on a con call, we had a conversation. It was just wonderful. People have got less travel time, so they've got more time to spend with things they've done. And because we're working from home, we're very focused on getting things done. So even in my own life this week, my efficiencies have been up. I've worked harder, and it's just been great to be at home. And I was saying to my team this morning, the first time in a long, long time, Richard, Isabella, myself sat down and had lunch together. I can't remember the last time I made lunch for us at home and sat down. And so I think there's some good stuff that's come out of all of this for us to spend more time at home with families and things like that. My third point there, for us, even at Mindful here, planning is now a daily activity, and I'm sure all of you are doing the same thing. First thing I do every morning I get up is what happened yesterday, where have we landed, how much cash is in the bank, where are the people at? And I think all of you are doing exactly the same. We used to at Mindful do it monthly, we'd look at the cash flow every week, but now it is every single day, and I'm sure everyone is exactly the same. The other thing we found in our business and talking to our customers this week is people want data. People are craving not only the COVID stats, what's the numbers at yesterday, but also data in their business. People are uncertain, they're worried, they're nervous, and they're craving data and information. And because there's so many of us wanting the information, we think there's a better way for us to distribute information to people on a daily basis so that they can see where things are at and have comfort, take action. And Kurt's going to have a big session with you guys on that. The other thing, what we're worried about and our customers are talking about is, where's my data? What's my exposure? What's the value of my data? Where can I access this? Things in the cloud, all that sort of data exposure. A lot of customers are talking about that. We've got a large utilities business that we talked about this week, wanting to move data around at the moment and moving things across. And it's a worry for people, and they want to know that that's all under control. The last thing we found this week talking to a lot of customers is people want to still be trained. People are craving, still learning, still getting across technologies. I've just been so amazed, and I've been very, very proud of my team, how people have just really engaged with still learning, still, using the new tools they have. And the great thing that's happened this week that I've realized, my customers, people now have more time to really get engrossed with the technologies they have. Whereas usually we're all so busy running around, traveling, doing this, you want to get across technology, but you just don't have time. And people now have the time, and people are more relaxed. They're sitting in their own environment doing that sort of thing. The second to last point here, one of the other things is because we're all in our planning tools, and even at Mindful this week, Michael, Corin, Tana, myself have been in our own planning tool every single day, changing things. Tana, our CFO, has created a COVID scenario for ourselves, and we're in there and changing things. So one of the things we want to just recommend to customers is make sure you document your planning. It's very easy, and especially myself, if anyone knows me, I'm fast and quick and make a lot of mistakes. And if any of you are worried about that, I could be sitting in the thinking my COVID scenario and I've overwritten all of the budget information. So one thing that we've decided is really make sure you take those snapshots and those regular points in time, take a capture of your planning solution and document it so that, if something happens, we've changed numbers incorrectly, we can always refer back to that or roll back to that, or also, understand why have things changed so dramatically. So I talked to the Cube Docs guys, and as part of us helping all of our customers out because all of you are going to do some very heavy lifting in terms of planning in the next few months. We will give all of our customers a free version of Cube Docs to use during April. Talk to us, talk to me and the team. We're going to give you a free cloud-based version. You can take as many documentations of your planning analytics or TM1 solution, keep documenting it, keep using it, and you guys can use it free for April just to help people get through this difficult time. The last point I've said there, what I've really, loved about not loved the situation, but loved about where we're at. I've had some real vulnerable connections with my existing customers in the last week. We're all in exactly the same situation. And when you're having a conversation from your home, you're vulnerable. And it's quite nice connecting with people on a different level. I had a really great conversation with an existing customer yesterday. And he shared about his family and his kids, and his daughter ran up and had a little painted picture. And it was just wonderful. It was a lovely connection that we would never have had in a coffee shop. So very testing times, very trialing times, but together we are going to get through this. Our doors are open. We're going to support all of you guys to run and crunch the numbers as quick as you can, help you with whatever it is you need. Glenn's been on the support desk amazingly, and the guys are just here to help. And we've built something very quickly that Michael and Daniel and the team have put together that we think is just going to help that rapid implications, to understand the impacts of it really quickly, to understand how do you get through this day by day. And then also the planning is, once we've gone through this period, is what does it look like at the other end. So just to introduce, I've said here the why. Our why, I think COVID-19, and it's actually quite a pretty little virus, isn't it? It looks beautiful, and which is the irony of it if you look at it. But I think for me it means planning, right? This is going to be the heart of what all of us, I know even in our business, we do every single day. First off, just to introduce the team, they'll turn their cameras on so you guys can see their pretty little faces. Actually, a pretty looking lot of people I see. So we've got Corin there who's going to talk to you guys. She's our COO. Michael, our CTO, you all know. Tana, who's our CFO. Some of you may not have met her face to face, but she's in the back end there helping us with a lot of financial things. We've got Kurt, our data and BI practice lead. Daniel Sun, who you all know, our chief data architect there. And then, of course, Glenn, who's our amazing support guy. So enough from me. I'm going to finish up at the end, but I want to get into the real chunky bit of things. So I'm going to pass over to Michael so that Michael can talk to you guys about just introducing what we've done, why we've done it, so you guys can have a chat to him. Michael, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Belinda. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so just to set the scene here, one of the things, or what I've been working on for the last couple of days is really taking our MyBI base model. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's basically a typical planning and forecasting model, and looking at how we can organize this better to cater for building different scenarios in this time. So I've come up with this scenario planning application, which I'm going to walk you through. I guess the first stage in this is really just building your scenario. So most of you will have existing plans that you put in place before COVID came along. So I know us as an organisation, we've pretty much finalised our budgets and had our revenue targets and everything else sorted. And then obviously COVID-19 came, so we needed to rethink things. So I guess the first step in the plan is just creating a version which will allow you to do your scenario modelling. Most of you will have this capability already. Giving your version a name, deciding if you want it to be dynamic with the rules connected or static. I'm going to show you how you can use kind of a hybrid approach today. And then you want to go through and create a baseline. So what we would typically do is seed this with our previous plan. So we'd take our budget scenario that we were planning, which kind of kicked in next month, and then we would make amendments to that, and we'd be tracking back against that budget just to see what the changes are and understand all of those. Another key consideration when you're building this scenario is really what models do you want to have turned on or off. I know in our MyBI solution we have this functionality inbuilt, and certainly anything you see today that isn't in your model, we can certainly help with just adding some of these levers as well. For example, if I wanted to do quite a high level plan where I just wanted to look at, what would happen if I reduced personnel costs by 13%, cut different expenditure categories, but you didn't want it linked to downstream modeling because you're just target setting at this stage, you could effectively turn all those models off and just go through and make adjustments to your data. Security is obviously important. Some of these scenarios or versions you come up with, they're very contentious. So just a reminder that we do have a very good security model and planning analytics where you can lock things down quite a bit as well. And then finally, just copying in your data. Obviously, it's, as I mentioned before, you would start with your plan that you had in place already. And then you'd use that just to populate the new version which you've created. And then as you go through the process and you're tracking against your actuals, you might want to feed actuals into that plan or create another plan for that purpose. So really that's just what we're doing around setting up the scenario. In each of your models, you'll all have different ways to do this, but we found it was quite useful just to incorporate this into the dashboard and add links to the different processes that you run to do this, just to allow you to do it quite quickly. Another thing, while we're working through what's required in this model, we found, just turn off this for a second. I won't do that. Okay. We found it was quite useful to actually bring in additional data to support your decision making. So these are three key dimensions that I'll take you through during the session. You've got your chart of accounts. One of the things Tana is going to talk to you about is just, it's really important to understand your variable expenditure and your fixed, and what sort of adjustments you can make to those. On your personnel or position dimension, really it's time to do a bit of a checkpoint and look at the positions that you have in the organisation, if you are affected quite harshly, and categorise those. We found that was quite useful just to figure out which ones really are mission critical, which ones are deferrable and so forth. In terms of customers, obviously, you might have various attributes associated with any product lines that you sell or your customers specifically. We found it was quite useful just to add an industry attribute, so you know where these customers think, and as you sit, and as you're doing your planning, you can make adjustments accordingly. Okay, so I'm just going to go through to the main screen of my demo. This is my essentially my operating statement. So I guess the metric I'm looking at here is EBIT. I'm also looking at my sales information, my HR costs and so forth. But I guess in terms of starting this planning process, if your revenue streams are impacted, I guess that'll be the ideal place to start. So you can see quite clearly I was planning to do quite a bit of sales, 91k, and then COVID-19 hit, and that may not be possible anymore. So I'm just going to navigate to my sales view. I guess the key point to mention here is I am actually looking across the different cost centers in my organisation while I'm making these amendments. Looking across my customers, I'm looking across my product streams. I can obviously drill down to whatever detail I require, or I can make these adjustments at quite a high level. I guess looking at my screen at the moment, I can see I've already got my customers categorized by region, which is probably quite useful in this case. Obviously, I could be looking at products as well, but I've chosen to focus on customers. And then I've got this attribute which I've added called industry, which just gives me some extra information that I can use in my decision-making process. One of the things I might want to do is just look at the industry. Obviously, tourism's a sector that's been hit quite hard, so I might just decide I want to zero that out and understand the impact of that. As I do that, you'll see, the the metrics at the top essentially update. So I've gone from 12 million EBIT to 9. And as I go through, I might want to make further adjustments just to forecast what I believe the impact is going to be on my revenue streams. Perhaps the east area has been particularly hard, so I'm just going to clear out sales for that area as well. And I can go through and, certainly with Workspace, as I'm making these changes, I can see how they reflect on my P&L as well. And then, maybe I just want to decrease sales in the north as well, so I might decrease them by 60%. And as I'm making these adjustments, they'll ripple through my different hierarchies too.
Michael, sorry, your sound is just going in and out a little bit.
Okay, I'll try to sit still, Belinda.
You sit still. Stop doing that weight
move
training.
around a lot. Yeah. So as I made those adjustments, I can see all of a sudden, despite my efforts to create a wonderful forecast, now that I'm in this situation, I'm 1.6 under effectively. So I guess what I need to do now is go through and look at what expenditure streams I can cut and so forth. And I'm just going to hand over to Tana just to talk a little bit about that now.
Thank you, Michael. So planning in this time can be super daunting because a lot of what is happening is outside of our control. But one of the things that is easier for us to control is your operating expenses. And when I want to focus my efforts, I almost divide it into 4 buckets. So the first bucket is subsidies. So which subsidies can I apply for? The next one is then the emergency steps. So that's what I can stop today or change today that will free up cash. Thereafter, I will look at expenses that I can pull back or that I can redirect. And lastly, I look at structural changes. So what initiatives can I start now that will change my structural cost base as I go out of the situation we are in? So if we go back to the subsidy bucket, in that subsidy bucket is, do you understand what is available to you? And do you know when you need to apply it? And what is the quantum that you will get once you pull that lever? So examples of that would be your wage and your leave subsidies, maybe some mortgage holidays, the change in the small asset tax threshold, and then the reduction in the interest rates. The second bucket is in what can you stop today? So that is mostly your discretionary spend, and it includes your capital spend as well. So in the model, we will show you how we classify your different expense types as discretionary, variable, and fixed. For discretionary spend, almost all of it you can eliminate, or you can at least significantly reduce it. In discretionary, we've got domestic and international travel, pro fees, and then capital projects that you've not yet committed to that you can put on hold. In the third bucket, we've got variable expenses. In those ones, you can pull it back or you can redirect. So for example, marketing spend. For marketing spend, maybe you can push out a campaign, you can cancel it. Maybe you want to redirect your campaigns to different industries or just specific industries. On capital spend that you've committed, you can delay it or you can slow it down. Also, you can look at your monthly subscriptions. Some of them you can cancel or you can adjust it as your headcount changes. Under variable expenses, I must make a note that some of your contracts might be based on volume discounts. You must understand what will be the impact if you go above or below some of that thresholds that it puts in the contract. And then lastly, to look at your fixed costs. I like to refer to it as variable over time. So those are the ones that you can identify actions today that will change your cost base in the future. So fixed costs might be your rental contracts. Maybe you want to renegotiate with your landlord, take a rental holiday. Maybe you want to reduce your office space going forward. Or it might be a hosting cost. In hosting costs, there's some options where you can put it not as a pay as you earn, but over 24 or 36 months that it immediately reduces that cost. And obviously the big one, staff. In the model, Michael will take you through all the scenarios you can build out on staff. But some of that fixed cost you won't be able to get out of, but now is a perfect time to invest in it. So it's for training, upskilling, maybe there's some R&D work that you can get the people now to focus on. I'm going to hand back to Michael and he will show you in the model how that plays out. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Tana. Okay, yeah, so basically, as Tana said, I kind of mentioned at the beginning that additional data that you might want to bring in. Obviously, you might want to bring in additional levers, additional assumptions, and the additional data as well. So really, it's just a case of going through categorizing your expenses accordingly, and then adding the attribute to your view, which you can do quite easily in Workspace as well. And once you've got that information there, you can obviously use that in your decision making. So for example, travel's discretionary, so I might want to reduce that. I might just want to cut it out completely, depending what the expense is. And I can go through and I can continue to make adjustments. You can also do things like sorting in here as well. So you can basically see all of these items together and so forth. And finally, I could create a hierarchy of my variable expenditure and so forth, and just spread directly into that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to decrease this one by 20%. And then I'm going to go on and then I could go through and adjust some of the other items as well. I guess one of the things.
You're just cutting in and out again. You're just cutting in and out again.
Okay, I think it might be my internet connection. Is it very bad, Belinda?
Not very bad. You just go softer and then quieter and then higher and quieter.
Okay.
But I can still hear you.
I'll try and speak louder too. Okay.
That's great. That's good.
Cool. All right. So obviously I can play around with the expenditure items, and those categories are quite key to my forecasting. I can also have a look at some of the other models. I guess one of the things that I should be looking at is what's my goal here. In this case, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm focusing on EBIT, and I want to get that to at least a break-even percentage, or maybe I want to limit the losses by 100k. Obviously, I need to understand what that goal is, because I don't want to just keep making cutbacks and see how much money I can save. I just want to get it into that area that I'll get into that range which is acceptable to my business. Obviously, and we can show this in a follow-up session. Some of you may be looking to keep your debt level at acceptable levels. You may be looking at your capital purchases and things like that. You may be looking to see how you can still get a positive cash flow. So if you have an integrated cash flow and balance sheet, you can focus on that as well. Okay, so from here, I can make adjustments to this level. I mentioned capital. I can go through to the capital model, and I can basically make adjustments across the board too. I can see that I was planning some different capital items. Looks like I was going to buy an ATM machine, which is quite interesting. It may not be needed now, so I'm just gonna cut that down, and I can see the impact on my depreciation expense. My EBIT, if I go through and exclude these. So this just gives an example of the type of levers that you can pull in your model. I was going to include these items, now I'm excluding them, and then that rolls instantly into your plan. I guess one of the key focus areas though would be personnel costs, particularly if you're personnel intensive. So I'm just gonna run through this dashboard that I've mocked up, where you can look at replanning personnel costs. But before I do that, I'm just going to hand over to Corinne to talk about some of the considerations you should take into account when making adjustments to your staff base and so forth.
Thanks, Michael. So as we've all sort of alluded to and Belinda talked about a little bit, and so did Tana alluded to, is one of the things for us now is around our people piece, and in particular around planning, because obviously during these really unpredictable times, there's a lot of scenarios that you may want to play out. So, for example, it might start as, do I have enough from a cash flow perspective to be able to pay out my wages, or do I need to look at eliminating some of my leave liability, for example, because this is probably a good time to get it and manage it to a zero base if you possibly can. You may have another scenario where you might, by agreement, be reducing hours. And Michael's going to show you how in the model it's really powerful that you can start and model that out. You also might want a situation where you want to retain your staff, and some of them agree, for example, that they may actually want to go out on a leave without pay sabbatical and come back after an unknown period. And another third one that we hope we don't actually get to, but we know that there are some organisations during this unpredictable time that have disestablished some of their roles and play out a redundancies in terms of what does that look like from a cost perspective, and playing that out in the model is also extremely powerful for you as well. And what the model also does, it actually allows you to accelerate some of these processes if you need to, if you've been able to model them out. You can also collaborate. So obviously, confidentially with your senior members, you can collaborate by using the model as well. And it gives you agility, because you might have, for large organisations, several scenarios that you want to actually play out. So you might have some people out on leave, some on reduced hours, some you will be topping up. For some organisations, they're topping up from 80% with leave top up. So there's a whole heap of scenarios that you can play out, and I'll hand it back to Michael so he can just show you a few, because that's a lot of scenarios that you could have going to be playing out, and how beneficial this model actually could be for you.
Okay, so I'm just looking at my personnel area. You'll see that I've just put key metrics on the screen, which I'm interested in, like the other areas. Obviously, remuneration is quite key. So I can see that I've got 1.2 million in remuneration. So I can look at what I can do about saving some costs there. As part of that, I've got benefits. I've got bonuses and salary increase planned. And I do actually have 371k, which I was planning to, take on board new staff as well. And in here, I'm just looking at my personnel over time. So I'm comparing my working budget to my working plan. Obviously, I haven't made any adjustments at this stage, so they're both the same. I'm also looking at my forecast leave taken over here, which we'll get to it in a sec. And then I've got my data view down the bottom. But in terms of what I can start doing is I can start changing some of those base assumptions that we were planning with. For example, I have a travel allowance here, per staff. So I can actually take that out of my plan, because we can't really travel too much at this stage. And you can start to see the impact of that as well. So you can see that I'm lowering costs by quite a bit just by taking some of these things out of my plan. I've got I was planning a salary increase and bonus. Obviously, I can go through and adjust these numbers at the individual level if I wanted. For now, I'm just going to essentially take them out of my plan. And again, you'll see that bonus has been zeroed out here, and I've made quite a bit of savings, and I'm down to negative 1.2 mil. Another thing you might want to look at is around the leave side of things. Depending on what sort of strategy you have, you might want all of your people to take leave, or a large chunk of your people to take leave immediately, and to lower the leave liability. Just to simulate that, we do actually have that modelled in our solution. So we've got a leave profile here. Obviously, you could actually load in the leave balances if you wanted to as well. But you can see in my leave profile, I'm planning 20 days, and basically it's heavy around December, January. So I could come in here and change that if I wanted, with the expectation that people now work over that period, you know, to make up for some of the losses that will be experienced. And then, you know, I may want people to use up all their balances as well, so I may make those numbers quite high. And then obviously, as I go back to my plan, you can see a bit of a shift there as well. There's some further savings to be made in that period too. One of the other key things I can do from here is I can actually go through to my personnel forecasting model. So a lot of our clients, you will be modelling your personnel in quite a bit of detail. So I've just drilled through to my model here. I can see all of my different entities. I can see my different regions or different cost centres that I have here, and my positions. As we talked about earlier, categorising those positions is really quite key. So you can see that Alex, this position here is what we classified as deferrable. So, you know, maybe we can do something about that. FTE as well. Some organisations have been looking at reducing staff down from, you know, a 5-day week to a 4-day week, just to save some costs here as well. So if I did want to simulate what it might look like if I, you know, put everyone on 0.75 FTE, I can just enter that and spread that data down. Then I can obviously go back to my dashboard and have a look at what the impact of that was. Again, of course, you know, you'd expect to see quite some savings there. Again, you know, one of my other strategies may be to, I may have some people who need to look after you know, their children, or you know, their families, or, you know, essentially maybe sick with the COVID-19 as well. What I've brought into my model is just these unpaid leave start and end dates too. Some people might just be happy to you know, take the subsidy and go on unpaid leave for a little while as well. And I can make adjustments here. So I might say this person from March through to April. I could have probably done that a little bit longer. Let's change that. I might go on unpaid leave, and I'm just gonna save that profile for a number of different individuals, so just so you can go back and see the impact or something like that on the base plan. So I've made those changes, and now if I go back to my dashboard and I refresh that, you should start to see a bit of a dip, and, you know, obviously further savings that can be made through doing that. Obviously, you know, if you're in an industry which has been hit quite heavily, there's also retrenchment as well. So, I mean, most of you will have end date flags built into your model as well. So, you know, I can simulate what it would be like to end some of those, particularly those deferrable positions, which I might be looking at. I've just chosen a heap of them for the purposes of the demo, so you can start to see the impact as well. And yeah, and then I'm getting closer to my goal, which was really about around minimising the losses by around 100k. So that just gives you an example of the type of top-down planning. It's kind of partly top-down, partly bottom-up, because you are looking at the individual models, but you're looking at them at a relatively high level, and you can push those changes down just to simulate the different scenarios that you may want to do. And certainly with our workspace application, you can see this quite visually as well. So, you know, I can see the changes that I've made across my year here. I can obviously go through to my analysis tab. I can look at you know, some of the changes in terms of variances between the different plans as well. And that's what I was planning before, that's what I'm planning now, and I can contrast different scenarios as well. Finally, I'll leave you that I mentioned before that we may have a follow-up session where we talk a little bit more about around the balance sheet and cash flow side of things. I just wanted to point out that we do have a whole heap of assumptions that we typically build into these models that we can play around with just to simulate what's happening out there in the market. Obviously, you have things like exchange rates, so understanding the impact of that. With the modelling, you can obviously change the profiles. Things like accounts receivable profiles. Essentially, you know, you may be planning to collect most of your sales in month one, but you know, the reality is there may be a bit of a lag now, and you may be looking at month 3, so you may need to change around some of these profiles. Accounts payable, on a similar note, you may be looking to defer payments. And then there's other assumptions like the inflation rate, which you know, has been relatively stable, but I mean, you know, it's going to change now. So you'll be able to look at the impact that you have on your model in terms of inflation and interest rates and things like that as well. Okay, so that's essentially all I wanted to focus on today. So I'll pass back to Belinda for the next speaker.
Just a note, everyone, we are recording this session so that we can share it with you guys. We may just re-record some of the bits so that the quality of the voice is the same. We are going to run this seminar again next Friday, if any of you have missed out. Thank you, Michael. That's amazing. Quick question. We'll leave the questions to the end so that we can stop recording in case people want to ask some confidential questions in the circle of trust. But we'll stop recording at the end. But I've just had a quick question. So all of the people online are all our clients, and they all have a planning analytics solution up and running. How quickly can I get this COVID scenario embedded in my existing model so I can do those personnel changes, those sales changes, those CapEx changes in an existing model?
Okay, so that's a good question, Belinda. I guess, you know, I've put this, or you know, my team has put this together over a couple of days. So one of the things we find is if you're doing a lot of the modelling already, very easy to actually build these applications and these dashboards just to organize things a little bit easier so you can play around with them. So really you can make a lot of headway in a day or two as
That's
well.
amazing. That's awesome. Just for our personally, from a business, we use MyBI as well for our own decision making. We've put our own COVID scenario in, and we do daily updates, current daily updates, work that's come in, work that's dropped off. So we understand every single day what is that impact, what's the numbers. Tana can then do her cash flow planning, everything. So very quickly we can get this up and running to help you guys on this daily decision making. So that's the first part we wanted to cover for you guys is how can we change our models quickly so that we can on a daily basis understand the impact, understand it forward, make the decisions around people, around CapEx, around spend, etc. else. And it's just, I think it was a really, really good way for us to visualize this. Now, the second part that I talked about is people are hungry for information. They want to get the data. Now, what we're finding in our business is we have a stand up every single morning first thing, and we share what's happened yesterday. So we talked to Kurt and his team, what can we do to help our customers very, very quickly get information out so that they don't have to call and email and put the extra strain on the actual bandwidth by where are we at, what happened yesterday. What can we do to get the data to them so people can get up in the morning, get their cup of coffee, log in and go, okay, right, phew, not as bad as I thought, or actually, look, there's a problem here. So Kurt, I'll pass over to you to take through your session.
Thank you very much, Belinda. Hope you can all see me. Hope you can see my screen.
We can. Looks beautiful.
Awesome stuff. Hi guys. So as Belinda mentioned in the beginning, I'm the practice manager at Mindful for the data and BI. And one of the things that I wanted to really, or there's two topics I'm going to be covering off today. The first topic is getting data, making everybody in your business able to see what they need to see. This extends outside of just finance. It's all data. Just really being able to analyze what you have and be able to make the correct decisions on a day-to-day basis. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is just around data strategy and some of the problems that we found, that's arisen from this pandemic that we have right now. So first things first, I've just built this mock-up dashboard. This is really just sample data, but this could be anything that's meaningful to you guys. This is inside of the latest version of Cognos. This could come from your sales system. This could come from your inventory management system. It could come from your HR system. We'll be able to model it all and connect it all. It could be even public data. And see here, I've got confirmed cases of corona. This is actual live data. It could be a news feed, so everybody can see exactly what's happening, get the latest videos. It really could be whatever's meaningful to you as a business. It could be what do I want to see. I am going to take you through some of the new features here inside of Cognos. One of the things that they have now is insights, where everything you do in Cognos has an AI over it. And it's one of the things that they're really pushing inside new Cognos is this AI underpinning everything. I could click insights here and it's going to show me things. It's going to say, okay, well, here's the average of my data. It's going to show me anything that identifies. And it's going to say, with a 95% confidence level, this is unusually high. I need to go and check why. It also allows me to then go and check why. For example, I could go to this day specifically and everything's linked and see what happened on that day. I could potentially go and see per that employee on that day. What did that employee do? Again, it allows different business units to look at different things. Everybody has different questions that they want to ask around data. To one person, the employee might be important. To the other, they might not worry about the employee, might want to see just their profit or just outstanding balances. The idea is that we have all the data unified. It's a single place. Again, you can give different dashboards to different people. I'll go through the others a little bit later. But yeah, like I said, I could really just focus on one day, or I could focus on whatever my data range is. I could focus on a bunch of days, I could focus on a couple. Another thing that Cognos does now is it's got forecasts. So I can turn on forecasts here. Now, bear in mind, this is just data forecasting. This is just saying, based on the data I have. So this wouldn't have the kind of insights that your finance team would have, where they know that we're in a COVID scenario now, so they can make better adjustments. But purely based on the data, this thing will go and say, well, based on your sales over the last couple of days, this is what I predict your sales should be like over the next couple of days. And this is literally going in, it's got a whole bunch of algorithms that run in the background. For example, here I did a unique customer training. We can see that it continues to spiral down, and we'd expect that it's going to continue spiraling down based on that trend. It's just one of those features, like I said, where AI is really underpinning everything we do here. You can also determine if you want to say for 5 days or if you want to say for 10 days. I can say I want 5 days worth of data, or I want 3 days worth of data, and it'll just go and readjust based on whatever calculations it's done. Like I said, newsfeed, you can put in videos, you can put in anything you really want to show. Anything that has value to you, we can put into you. There's so many visualizations, there's so many ways to show this. It's essentially us going, well, what do you need? On top of that though, so historically when we've looked at data, it's I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see that. With the new AI underpinning all of this, a really cool feature that this has is that it starts going and starts acting as a management consultant. And it starts going, well, what else can I show? What other explorations can I show? So I can go based on this graph and say, I want to see a new exploration around this graph. So it's going to give me some details. It's going to give me some information around the graph that I've wanted to do the exploration on. But then I can go and say, well, query my data. And here's, for example, you could put in anything. You could do any search. But I'm going to say profit. It's going to say, what other data is related to profit? And how can I display that? So for example, here you see it's just busy scanning through, and it's going to continue scanning through, and it's going to suggest a bunch of different visualizations that you can use. So for example, if I wanted to see this visualization, now this is one that I haven't built. This is something that it's gone and generated and said, well, you know what, I think this might be a meaningful visualization for you. So it's one that it's built on the fly kind of thing, and it said you may want to look at this. It's gone and put profit into profit groups. It's nothing. This is nothing that I built, nothing that I pre-built for this demo. This is it going. This is a system saying these are things that may be meaningful to you. And this is basically just showing me what is my profit per product. You know, how many products am I getting, and what's the profit on those products. You know, it's really, it goes and tries to find any relations from your data, and it says this is something you may want to look at. Like I said, it's starting to act that AI starts becoming that management consultant, say, have you thought of looking at these things? And it's often things that we may not have thought of. So yeah, so that's another cool feature. And you know, you can save and reuse these. You can save it as another dashboard if you wanted to. You know, so next time you come in, it's there as a new tab, and you've got all those other explorations that you've done. Another cool thing, again, around the AI, is you can start asking questions of your data. So for example, if I want to say show revenue, bear in mind, I have no columns in this data set currently called revenue. I have nothing with the tag revenue or the title revenue. This thing's going to go and search, and it's going to try and find anything to do with revenue. There we go. So again, like I said, I've not mentioned, I don't have revenue anywhere. The AI engine is smart enough. It's got a whole bunch of things built in already to know that revenue often means profit. So what it's gone and done now is it hasn't brought me anything with revenue because it doesn't know anything with revenue. But what it's told me is, look, I think you want some information about profit. And then it's going to give me a whole bunch of stuff about profit. It's going to tell me what makes up profit, what are the metrics that we use to see profit. It's also going to show me reports and data sets and a whole bunch of other stuff that it thinks may be meaningful to me where it's found profit. So it's going to say these matching sources, it's in here, it's in here. So it's very quick and easy to go and find the data once asking simple English questions. It's no longer, you don't have to be this person who knows data inside and out, because the AI is going to kind of lead you onto things that you need to see. It also leads you onto other questions. So you could, for example, say, what influences columns? And it will then give you a whole bunch of other things to look at that, you know, influences that column. How do we make that column up? You know, is it based on the unit price, the quantity, the customer? What makes up that profit? And I can go and interrogate each of those pieces. So yeah, so like I said, this is all underpinned by AI. It does a lot of the thinking for you. It's really great. One of the things I did want to talk about, and this is one of the reasons why I've decided to go for Cognos specifically over Power BI or ClickView, you know, or any of those other BI tools, is this is the only one that can directly connect to a planning system. So you saw Michael take you through that. I've literally just gone and, you know, made some random visualizations here, but this is directly plugged in to planning analytics. So anything that Michael does in his planning system, I'll be able to display it here. And this is one of the only systems that natively does that without having to try and build API connections or things like that. If he goes and makes a change here, I refresh this data, and that change will be immediately reflected. And I obviously have all the versions, so I can see what can forecast or budgets. I have all the periods. It's one of the particular reasons why I chose to demo Cognos is purely on that, on the fact that I can connect directly to whatever Michael's done. So your finance guys do amazing work. They go and enter all this information. I can then give this view along with any other data to any of the other people in the company, you know, whether that's your ground staff or your CEOs or whoever needs to see data. It's a unified view. I can really see from all aspects how my company is doing on a day-to-day basis. And this is one of the things that we think is really important. As Belinda mentioned, every day we're going and we're saying, well, how do we do yesterday? You know, it's historically we generally see at the end of the month, how do we do, or how are we doing for next month? We can do this on a day-to-day basis. Another great thing right now is where Cognos is at, is that it's no longer this big beast that you have to have multiple servers and things like that. You know, sure, if you're wanting to run enterprise editions, that's absolutely available. We can get these dashboards built relatively quickly. I mean, this took me a few days to check, and like I said, I've got a bunch of different data sets in here, including Michael's model that I've just dragged in here. This I got up and running in, you know, a couple of days, and just tweaking around and play around with it. Cognos itself also has on-demand offerings now. Historically, they didn't have that. So I can go onto their site, I can subscribe for $22 roughly a month per user, and I can have access to these dashboards. It's all in the cloud, it's all available, it's available on all your mobile devices. You can actually create views specifically for mobile devices. Anybody who has a license able to go in, you know, and go see these dashboards. They can also, you know, change it as they want and save it and save different versions. But yeah, it really is a lot more available than it previously was or has historically been. Like I said, I think you know, it's based on the exchange rate, but I think from about $22 per month, I can have users looking at this, and it's instantaneously. It's not, you know, I don't have to do any installs. It's essentially going in, setting up the model, and then just connecting to your source systems, and then possibly modeling it as you want to see it and as you want it all connected. It's definitely, you know, it's definitely quite a difference in how we get this and how quickly we can get this up and running. It's no longer something that you have to spend months to try and get running, especially in terms of the dashboarding and stories. Yeah, and that's about all I wanted to show you in the Cognos side, or the reporting side, of how do we get this to our customers, you know, to see that unified view of their business on a day-to-day basis. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is more just talk, so I don't have any slides or anything to this, is around the data and what we're seeing. You know, with everybody having to work remotely, it's, Belinda mentioned there's a whole bunch of great things, and fortunately we are in this day and age that, you know, technology does allow that. I mean, you know, most people have good internet at home. Most people, there's a lot of tools like Teams or, you know, GoToMeeting that you can really facilitate all of this. But with that being said, there's been a lot of problems. We've had customers who have 4,000 staff but only 500 VPN accesses. I know a lot of companies already have been on this, have been looking to go to the cloud journey. I know a lot of companies have started thinking about it. I think now more than ever, it's showing the prevalence of why we actually should be looking at this, why we should be starting to plan. I know we will come out of this, but I think, as Belinda said in the beginning, business in general is going to change. And one of the most important things is, are we ready with our data to change with it? I think we're quite lucky in New Zealand. We don't have any regulations yet. We don't have any, you know, New Zealand-based regulations on our data. They will definitely be coming, like the rest of the world. The rest of the world has these regulations. We're still, you know, bound by those global regulations. ISO, you know, 9001, all those global regulations, we're still bound by it, but we don't have our own ones yet. So we're still lucky where we are now, in that nobody's going to really be enforcing any local regulations. They will be coming. The rest of the world has done them. It's just a matter of time. This has in itself caused a bunch of problems. For the clients that are on today, do you know what data your guys are currently accessing at home? Do you know if they have personal data that they possibly downloading onto their local machines? Do you have those views? You know, are you able to see this? Are you able to make sure that they actually do have the data that they need to see? Are they connected to the right system? These are all questions and challenges that we found customers are experiencing now, is that they don't actually know their data. And the one learning that I want to take out of this is really along getting to know your data as a business. Know where your data is, know who can see what data, know how meaningful your data is, how reliable your data is. The first step to any journey, any data journey, in my opinion, is let's start getting a catalog. Let's really understand this data. And this is going to help me along my governance, along my security, along my regulations. It's also going to help me inform the integration or the moving of data. So if I'm a company that's just started a journey to move to cloud, I couldn't stress more the importance of getting a catalog on there, so I can start looking at that journey and start really planning it out, instead of coming halfway down the line and having massive surprises. Oh, I didn't even know we used this source system, or I didn't know the source system was still being used, or that we have these spreadsheets freely available to anybody. It's something that I really think, or I encourage all our customers to really start thinking about, is starting to understand their data and starting to get, you know, get a hold of their data, especially in these times where we have to work with it remotely. Let's make sure that we're doing it in the right way. It's something that we can help with. You know, all our offerings are cloud-based offerings, so something we can help. You know, put a cloud on your data, put a catalog on your data. Feel free to reach out to me or anybody at Mindful if you have any more questions about this. I think that's all from my side. I'm going to hand back to Belinda.
Thank you so much, Kurt. That is awesome. That is really good. We had last week, or this morning, actually not last week, things are going so fast. We had actually this morning a session with our team to talk about data, and we reminded our team of our data policy. We talked around, you're at home, you've got your mother-in-law maybe looking over your shoulder, you know, be very mindful. So all the same data policies that we have on a normal business, you know, still exist for people. So what we said to our guys is, you know, be mindful of what you're looking at, or where's your data at, who's seeing all those sorts of good stuff. And it's just a good time to really think about all those sorts of things.